welcome to another epic recipe video. And this video is for all my cake lovers out there. You're always saying, well, if I have to go on this really strict healthy diet, I'm not going to be able to enjoy my cakes. I'm not going to be able to enjoy all those really good food that everyone else is out there enjoying. Well, I've got some good news for you today because I'm going to share with you my epic carrot cake recipe. And this recipe doesn't use any of those refined sugars, refined starches, none of the gluten, none of the preservatives, no seed oils, cooking oils, or anything like that. This recipe is just amazing. It's so simple. Yes, it's so simple. Even a 5-year-old can make it. It's that simple. It's that easy to make. And it's gonna probably be way better than any of those store-bought versions. And you're gonna make it for a fraction of the cost. So as always, let me get into the ingredients of this recipe. And like I said, it's super simple. So I'm just gonna go with a quick overview of the ingredients. What do I have here? I have chickpea flour over here. Over here I have, you can use any gluten-free flour. The one I'm using is called Ferrari flour. It's a fasting flour that is normally used. However, you can also use things like buckwheat flour. Just make sure it's one of those whole grain flours that are gluten-free. Generally, my preference is to stick to Ferrari flour, buckwheat flour. Those are generally my go-to flours whenever making these cakes. They end up with a really nice texture and they taste really good. What else do I have? I have cinnamon. Over here, we're gonna use quite a lot of cinnamon in this recipe. Then we have a little bit of salt that we're going to add, some nutmeg, a bit of bicarb soda, and then apple cider vinegar. And that's needed just to ensure that the cake is no longer this lump of dough, and it actually has a bit of fluffiness to it. So that's needed for that. And then what I have here, I have 3 chopped grated carrots that you can use. And that is going to add a lot of the sweetness. So as you can see, there's absolutely no sugars, no refined starches. You may be wondering, this is going to taste bad. No, it isn't. It's going to get a lot of the sweetness from the carrots. So make sure you're using fresh, raw carrots that are very sweet. That's going to add all the sweetness to the cake. And with that said, let's get right into baking. So let's get into adding all the ingredients. First, I'm going to start off with the flour. So this can be either your Ferrari flour or your buckwheat flour. And I'm going to add 1 cup and 1/3 of this flour. Now, I never ever make any of my baking from a recipe. I generally just go off the top of my head. Sometimes it's a disaster and sometimes it's good, but this one here seems to be working out really good. So generally aim for about 1 cup and 1/3 of this flour, and then I'm going to add 4 tablespoons of the chickpea flour, and this is really good for binding the dough. And you can go with full heaps of chickpea flour. Now what you can also add here is flax seeds. That's optional. You don't have to add it, but you can always add your mulled flax seeds to it as well. And that's just going to help it bind better. So next up, we're going to add the cinnamon. And I'm just going to add about a teaspoon of cinnamon to it. So 1 teaspoon of cinnamon. Just a little bit of salt, not too much. So more or less about a pinch of salt and about a pinch of nutmeg too. Okay, then what we're gonna do is we're gonna mix all these ingredients up. As I said, I'm gonna add a little bit of flax to it as well. So yeah, I have milk flax seeds. Then I'm gonna add about 2 teaspoons of flax seeds to it. With that, I'm gonna mix all these dry ingredients together. So next up, I'm adding all these grated carrots, and you can add more carrots, more vegetables, and more fresh ingredients, the better. So next, I'm also going to add a full cup of water, and this is, like I said, there's no oil, it's just water in here. I'm going to add that full cup of water and mix these ingredients together. Now, as you can see, this is going to require a bit more water, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more water so that it mixes well. So there you go, that's the desired consistency that we want. And now I can go ahead and add the bicarb soda as well as the apple cider vinegar. So for the bicarb soda, I'm aiming for about half a teaspoon. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to pour the apple cider vinegar directly over this so that it starts to cause a reaction, and then I'm going to mix it in, and that aeration is going to get into the dough and allow for the rest of it to rise as well. So I generally want all of that to react. I don't want any clumps of the bicarb soda to remain, and I'm going to mix all that up. Once it's well mixed, I'm going to transfer this over to a baking pan. So once you have this, try and just move it about so that it covers the entire surface of your... So there we go. Looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bit of cinnamon on top of this. So there we go, the cake is nicely poured into this baking pan, and I'm going to set it into the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit and let it bake for about 45 minutes. Now many of you may be thinking, well, this thing is going to taste really dry because there's no oil, there's no butter in it to give it that rather moist consistency. However, a lot of that is going to come from the carrots, and that's why we use fresh carrots. And like I said, if you want to go ahead and add more than 3 carrots, go ahead and add more. It's just going to allow it to have a little bit more density as well as moisture. But there you go, that's the recipe for this very simple cake. I told you even a 5-year-old can make this cake. It's that simple and it tastes super delicious. But with that, let's pop this into the oven and then we'll get back when it's all done. Alright friends, my epic cake is baked to perfection and it's almost ready for consumption. It's still very hot, so I need to give it a bit of time to cool down. I did transfer it out from the baking pan onto a wooden chopping board, and I'm going to allow it to cool off over here for a couple of minutes, and then it should be ready for cutting. As you can see, it's a very thin cake. However, I prefer it this way. I like the much more crispier texture to it, so I generally leave it a little longer in the oven. However, if your preference is not to have it too crispy, then try and take it out a lot earlier. This cake tastes amazing. You'll notice the sweetness from the carrots, so if you generally tend to leave it overnight, the next day it's going to taste really good because it's going to have a bit more of that moisture content from the steam as it cools down. So as always, if any of this content resonates with you, try this recipe out, and you find that you like it or you don't like it, let me know in the comment section below. This is my go-to cake recipe. I've eaten this many times, and generally I find this is probably one of the best cakes that I know I can consume guilt-free because it doesn't have all those toxic ingredients like those oils and refined sugars. There's none of that in here. It's super healthy. It's one that we can consume guilt-free, knowing that this is a vegan cake, it's gluten-free, it's oil-free, it's refined starches free, refined sugar free. It's like the best recipe you can get, and that's the way cake should have been made. None of the toxic stuff, and something that we can consume without that guilt. As always, thanks so much for watching, and please do like, share and subscribe. And with that, I'll see you in my next epic recipe video.